went from completely broke to having 6 figures in my savings account by the time I was 26 years old, and I truly believe it was adopting these 6 habits that allowed me to do this and has allowed me to achieve any financial goals I have set myself since then. If you're new here, my name is Josh. I'm an ex-NHS physiotherapist turned property investor, and on this channel I talk everything about business, finance, self-development and property. Saving up your first £100,000 may seem like a daunting task, and that's because it is. You know, it's well recognised within the personal finance space that the first £100,000 is the hardest. But however, with these 6 habits I'm going to tell you, it's definitely achievable, so let's jump straight in. So the first habit on our list is that we need to be able to create ourselves a financial savings goal or a financial plan. Now this is something that may be completely new to you, and that's okay. I know for me personally, like throughout my education and into my early 20s, the whole concept of savings and personal finance was completely alien to me, and I had no idea what I was doing. You know, I was too busy focused on, you know, doing well at college and graduating university and securing that first good postgraduate job. However, unless we take the time to sit down and figure out what our actual saving goal is, it's going to be really hard to know in which direction we're going, and all we're going to do is we're just going to lose motivation and get sidetracked along the way. So when we're setting ourselves a financial savings goal, it's really important to be specific, realistic and also time sensitive in our intentions. And by this I mean we need to define how much money we want to save and in what time period. For example, you might want to save £100,000 in the next 5 years. Once we have this initial goal in place, we can then break it down into smaller and more manageable short-term goals or targets. You know, for example, rather than thinking, oh, I need to save £100,000 over the next 5 years, I just need to save £20,000 a year for the next 5 years. By breaking down larger goals into smaller goals, it keeps us on track, as it is psychologically easier to achieve smaller goals rather than a larger goal. And splitting a larger goal into smaller goals will also help us more readily identify places in our strategy where it's going wrong, right? So at the end of year 1, you know, you have a look at the numbers and then you realise that you're not going to hit that £20,000 savings target. You can have a quick look at why that is, and then you can adopt it and change it going forward to make sure you don't make the same mistakes twice. However, if we kept it at the larger goal of £100,000 in 5 years, you know, we do the analysis at the end of 5 years, realise that you haven't met £100,000, and then you've wasted, you know, 5 years of your time. So the second habit on my list is that we need to be able to create ourselves a good financial budget. Now, this was something I was terrible at first. I had no idea what I was doing, and I'm pretty sure some of you feel the same. So a realistic financial budget will allow us to delve into how exactly we're spending our money, you know, our incomings and our outgoings, and then we can figure out how much we've got left over at the end of the month that we can potentially put towards our savings pot. So what does a budget actually need to include? Well, in really simple terms, it needs to include all our monthly incomings. So that's for the majority of people, that will be from their wages or their salary, and also any other incomes from, you know, businesses or side hustles. But also you need to include you know, anything else that you might receive on a monthly basis, such as, you know, benefits from the government and any financial aid from family and friends. Next, then we need to take a note of all our outgoings on a monthly basis. So we can roughly split these into fixed expenses, you know, things that you know are going to come out every month, like your mortgage payments or your rent payments, you know, any sort of like long-term contract payments, like your car, for example. And also more variable expenses, things that change on a monthly basis, such as the amount of your grocery shopping, your utility bills and that sort of thing. Once we have everything listed, we can then subtract our outgoings from our incomings to give us the total amount of money we have left over each month, and then we can start to decide how much we want to put towards our savings pot. Alternatively, you might have done the calculations and realised that your outgoings are actually larger than your incomings, and at this point you won't be saving money and you might need to readjust and have another quick look at your budget. There are tons of strategies out there that we can use to help us decide our savings allocation rates. One of these is the 50-30-20 rule, and this says that 50% of our monthly income should go on our fixed expenses. For example, our rent payments, our mortgage payments, car payments, utilities, that sort of thing. 30% of the monthly income should go towards discretionary spending, any hobbies that you have and entertaining yourself. Then 20% should go towards your savings pot. However, I think it's more important to develop a budget that is right for you and develop a budget that's going to keep you on track in the long term. And by adopting this habit of creating budgets and regularly updating them, it's going to serve us a better financial position overall, and it's going to help us achieve those saving goals faster. Now that our budget is in place, the next habit that we need to adopt is cutting out any unnecessary expenses and spending money on unnecessary things. Now this is a bit hard, and it does require a bit of willpower and a bit of sacrifice, to forego those short-term pleasures in order to achieve our long-term financial goals. But this is going to free up a lot of money each month that we can put towards our savings pot and reach our goal faster. So the first thing we can do is we can look at our budget, and then we can cut back on spending on things that we don't really need. For example, we can reduce the amount of takeaways we buy, we can reduce the amount of times we go to nice restaurants and dine out, and we can also cancel any subscriptions we no longer use. Like, for example, do you have that Netflix subscription that you never use, or do you have that Amazon Prime subscription that you never use? Can you move to a cheaper gym? Can you get a cheaper phone contract? That sort of thing. So another thing that we can do to save ourselves money is avoid any impulse purchasing, and generally avoid getting ourselves involved in financial commitments that we know we cannot afford. I think we live in a highly consumer society, where the latest and greatest technologies are advertised to us 24/7. And this is something like I used to fall short of. I used to be attracted to the latest and greatest, always buying that new iPhone, always buying that new games console and things like that. However, what I decided to start doing was taking 24 hours to really think, do I need this product before I buy it? Now, cutting down on our expenses doesn't necessarily mean that we have to live this completely frugal life devoid of any enjoyment. That's not what it's about. It's simply about being more mindful and more intentional with how we spend our money and what we spend our money on. We need to prioritize spending our money on things that we find intrinsically enjoyable and not something that other people are advertised to us or other people are telling us that we will enjoy. So by developing this habit, we'll free up more money each month that we can put towards our savings pot. It'll allow us to hit that goal faster and give us greater financial security in the future. So the next habit on my list is the notion of paying yourself first. Now this is a financial strategy where we set aside a proportion of our income each month for savings, and we do this before spending our money on anything else. And the idea behind that is that we prioritise our own financial futures and our savings goals. So the concept of paying myself first was really effective for me when I was on my savings journey, and it helped me save a ton of money. So each month I go through the same 6-step process. So firstly, I prioritise paying off any important bills I had, such as my rent payments, because I wanted to keep a roof above my head. The second step was I prioritised paying off any high interest credit card debt or other debts that I knew were just going to cost me money in the long term. The third step, I prioritised building up an emergency fund. So I saved up 3 months worth of living expenses. And this way I knew if my monthly income became interrupted in any way, I could sleep easy at night, knowing I had 3 months worth of money in the bank to live off. The fourth step on the list was to ensure I was enrolled in my company's pension scheme, and also to ensure I was getting the maximum match contributions from my employer. Now lots of companies do this, and each company has a slightly different policy. But for example, they might have a policy where if you contribute 6% into your pension each month, they'll match it and also contribute 6%. So speak to HR, have a look at your job contract and making sure you're getting the maximum contributions from your employer, because this is free money into your pension at the end of the day. The fifth step in the process was then to invest in individual savings accounts, also known as ISAs. So there's a couple different types of these. There's cash ISAs, stocks and shares ISAs, and lifetime ISAs. So what I would do each month, I would automate money going from my current account into these savings accounts, so then I didn't have to worry, and I could rest assured that these investments were being made. Only after I'd done all those previous steps would I reach my sixth and final step, which was when the discretionary spending started. So then at this point I'd allow myself to buy that new video game I wanted, I'd allow myself to buy that new pair of shoes I wanted, And what I found was that I actually felt less guilty about spending my money on these things, knowing that I put reasonable steps in place to ensure my financial future. The fifth thing that we need to make a habit out of is improving our monthly income. The simple reason behind this being that the higher our monthly incomes, the more money we're going to have at the end of the month after bills, and the more money we're going to be able to allocate towards our savings, and we're going to be able to reach our financial goal quicker. Now, unfortunately, I do think this is the most likely reason that people don't achieve their financial saving goals within the timescales they set. And that's because it is extremely difficult to save yourself all the way up to a six-figure saving pot. And sometimes the square root of the problem is that your job is just not well paid enough. And it goes without saying that a person earning £100,000 per year is going to be able to save up a six-figure savings account quicker than somebody earning £21,000 a year. Now, the easiest way, in my opinion, to improve your monthly income is by increasing the salary or the wage you get from your job. You can do this by working more hours or asking for a pay rise or even changing jobs completely. A good rule of thumb is to change jobs every 2 to 3 years with the aim with the next job you go into having a higher salary than the previous job. Remember, employers are only loyal towards themselves and not towards the employee. So by staying in the same job for 10 years with no real prospect of a salary increase or a promotion, it's just a bad deal and a waste of your own time. And unfortunately, this is something I see all the time. I think people get sucked into the comfortability of their current job role, and even though they've been working there since 21 years old and now they're 30 years old and still on the same wage, there's a tendency to turn a blind eye in favour of the comfort that that job brings, and then the people wonder why they aren't achieving their financial goals. Another way that we can improve our monthly income is by starting a business or starting a side hustle. However, it's important to note that both of these take time, and sometimes you're better off investing that time into yourself and improving your business skills, your education, and making yourself more desirable to employers, and then you're able to command those higher salaries. A quick caveat to this habit is that we also can combine it with living within our means and also avoiding lifestyle creep. For example, there's no point taking all that time, all that effort in securing that job with a higher salary if then at the end of each month when we get paid, we go ahead and spend all that extra income on non-essential things. We need to make sure that even though we're now earning, let's say, £80,000 a year, we're still spending and living our lives as if we were earning our original £21,000 a year salary. Otherwise, we are going to fall into a trap on relying too much on our new and improved salary, and that's going to cause more financial problems. So the sixth and final habit on my list, and again this is something that was crucial for me during my savings journey, is that we need to become financially literate. And the good news is, by watching this video and hopefully by watching the others on my channel, you've already taken your first steps in becoming financially literate. I think it's really important that we take the time to learn about personal finance and learn about things like budgeting and investments and retirement planning, because put simply, this is something that is not taught to us at school. And it's a very realistic possibility that somebody can get to 18 or 21 years old and finish their education and not even know what personal finance means. The lack of established good finance habits at 21 years old will then continue into adulthood, and that person can then reach retirement age and be disappointed, with their savings and the outcome. So luckily for us, we now live in a world where personal finance information is readily available at our fingertips online. And if you're more traditional and like books, there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of personal finance books you can read to improve your knowledge. I just wanted to take a bit of time to show you a couple of websites that I personally found very useful during my savings journey. So the first one is Citizens Advice. So this is a really great website, not just finance related as well. There's other topics, but the amount of information on here is incredible. So what we've got here: debt solutions, budgeting, problems with mortgages, rent arrears, pensions, banking, borrowing money, financial advice, gambling problems, tax advice. It's a fountain of knowledge, and I'm sure if you've got any questions, you'll be able to find an article on here as well. There's also options where you can contact them, by email, phone, and also I think they do physical citizen advice centres in town centres and things like that, where you can go and have that face-to-face support from another person, which is really cool. The next website is the UK personal finance Reddit page. So obviously I don't want to get into the ins and outs of what Reddit is in case you don't know, but this is basically a forum where people from the UK interested in personal finance can post problems, questions, and then give advice and comments and things like that. Again, we could spend all day, you know, going through this forum, and but you know, any sort of how I think about it is, if you have that problem, if you're having a problem, the likelihood is that someone else has had that problem before, and you know, more often than not, you might be able to find a question thread relating to that question, and then you can read the comments from impartial people. And then final one is just similar again on Reddit. It's just the financial independence retire early page. So this goes hand in hand with my previous FIRE video, and again, really good advice of a financial nature. Additionally, I also think there's a bit of a taboo in the UK surrounding personal finance, and talking about money is something that people don't always find the most comfortable thing to do. And that's another reason why these websites are so good, is because you can seek impartial advice from the comfort of your own home, right? So you know, it is really good, and I do recommend you checking out these websites. I mean, I think for me personally, I love talking about personal finance. I'm very enthusiastic about it, and it's one of my biggest interests. So I know if a friend asked me for advice, you know, I'd be more than happy to talk about them, you know, and give them my input. And I think overall that this is like my main focus and my main aim for this channel, is to sort of break down those barriers and make personal finance accessible for everybody. So that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned a thing or two. I want to know what you guys think. You know, can you see yourself adopting any of these habits going forward? Or maybe you're even doing one or two of them already. Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you have any questions, leave them there also, and I'll definitely get back to you. If you want to see similar content from myself, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and I'll see you next time.